Hi, this is the Philip Passenger. Today we're going to talk about Aphex Twin. I'm not Aphex Twin. I've never met Aphex Twin. I don't know how exactly he's working, but we are still going to make an attempt to make something melodic in the style of. So this is going to be focusing on melody rather than sound design and beats and stuff. I will be doing a little bit of that too, but we'll see how we get on. So without further ado, let's start. We got an operator and we need to have, let's see, my headphone volume is very low. To start with, I am going to put a limiter on the master just because I'm thinking of you guys. We need a bass. I'm thinking about some of the more recently releases by Aphex Twin, like Cyro and onwards perhaps. So I'm going to use a lot of operator in this. I tend to use operator a lot anyway. And what we're going to do, we are going to we want, for the second operator, we want the velocity of the notes to control the volume, but the first one we don't want that. It's just so we can create a bit more FM when the notes are being hit harder. So this is going to be a bass sound and we want that to be in mono, so we change the number of voices to 1. We also want the velocity to change the time. This knob here, if you're not familiar with it, it changes all the envelopes in operator in one go. So it makes everything longer. So if we set the velocity to affect that, so if I hit a note softly, it will be very short, and if I hit it harder, we get longer notes. And then we're going to change the spread, because bass is traditionally not in stereo, but by spreading it out in the stereo spectrum, we're going to make it stereo anyway. Okay, so let's make a little bass line here. We're going to talk about melodies. There will be quite basic stuff here, and this is maybe the sort of video I would have wanted to see quite a while back. We're going to talk about scales, but don't be afraid if you are not familiar with music theory and things. The only thing you need to keep in mind that a scale is a group of notes that has been selected where the notes have a nice relationship with one another, which makes it a lot easier if you stick to those notes to just make it sound decent. There's two ways of using scales built into Ableton. One is if you open, we're just going to make a pattern here. You can click the scale here, and then you can choose the key, and you can choose a scale. You can play around with lots of different scales. We're going to keep it simple. We're going to take my favorite scale, which is basically the Minor Pentatonic Scale in D sharp. In other words, it's just the black keys. So one of the ways is obviously this, where you can set it to D sharp, and we can set it to minor pentatonic. Where do we have minor pentatonic? I am absolutely blind there. Boom. Now you can see all the black keys are highlighted. The other way you can also choose a scale is by going into MIDI effect, and then you find under scales, you find the scale plugin, and then we can pick minor pentatonic. And we have to set that to D sharp. Those two things will in theory do the same thing, but there are some slight differences. So with this one, any key I'll press, it doesn't matter which key I press on the keyboard, it's going to just shift any wrong notes into this scale. So basically you can't make any mistakes. we're going to use this later, and I am going to show you why this is a good idea. However, there are sometimes benefits of using this method. It just highlights which ones are in the scale, but it allows you to draw the notes in between if you want to occasionally step out the scale. That does not work with this plugin, because then even if you draw the wrong notes in, it's going to take them and force them into the right scale. So we're going to use this one now, and you will get the idea. I'll show you why. All right, we can turn this scale thing off. Or we can just, no, we can keep it on. It doesn't really matter. And then we see which ones are here highlighted. And when writing melodic content, I think it's the easiest way of thinking about it. Like, you can obviously just draw notes all over the place, but think of it dividing it into 4. So this section here between 1 and 2, that is a bar. And you can change the length here. So we set this to 4 bars. And then you will have basically 4 sections with four notes each. Well, 4, what are they? 4 quarter notes, but we want to work in 16th notes. I don't know why I said that, but anyway. Also, the tempo for Aphex Twin, we need something a bit faster. I'm going to set this to around 140. 141 will be fine. And an easy way to just write a bass line is to pick something out of your scale. This is going to be the most super easy bass line. I'm just going to set it. That's way too high up to be a bass line, isn't it? We do that one. Just stick to a series of notes to start with for each bar. And then we can change it up a little bit in the last one, where we just go half the bar, and then we do 2 separate notes. Super cheesy. Also, you see here, rather than doing the quarter note, sounds a bit static, we do these sort of triplet sounding things that will make it feel a little bit more groovy. We're going to talk about which notes are stronger. So the strongest of them all is the first note in the bar. So if you have something there on the downbeat, that's going to be really strong. The second strongest one is halfway through, and then you get the ones in between. And these ones that sort of fall a little bit in between, they are the weakest notes, but they are also the ones that create a little bit of tension. Okay, so we need to make this a little bit more interesting, right? So we can spice it up by maybe changing something at the end of the bars. So if we do something like, so we do some really high bass notes, and so jumping around the scale a bit. Maybe we can do the occasional one. And you remember we changed to set the velocity to both affect the second operator, and as well as the time. But now everything is at velocity 100, so we're going to turn that down a bit, and then we set the velocity range so we get a bit of randomness here. I think those notes are maybe a little bit too high. Just going to try for fun what happens if we add a little bit of glide. But maybe then we need to have some overlapping notes. Maybe some of the notes we can actually drag out to make them a bit longer. The glide didn't do much. So we got a little bit of a bass line going, but we're not quite done yet with the bass line. So here you're going to see the power of using this version of sticking to scales, and rather than the other method, because we can also go into MIDI effects and then we can choose a random. And here you can, every time you press a note, so I'm going to turn that off for now. Now this is at 0% and I'm just hitting the C key. But the higher percent this is, the more likely it is to pick another note. But without the scale plugin, those notes are quite likely to be outside of the scale and it's just going to sound really off. So now, even though we have a very familiar loop, but it's 25% chance that every time it receives a note, that it's going to pick another note, but forcing it into the scale, which is going to create a little bit of variety in our arrangement. And now we are going to move on to the next sound. Use another operator. Now we're going to make something a bit more melodic. Well, the bass is melodic, but more of a, maybe a lead line. To make it maybe feel a bit more Aphex-y, we need to make it slightly more unstable, so we can maybe we also choose the algorithms. So all these operators are individual ones. And then we can detune one of them. Maybe not too much. And then we are going to stick to the same scale. We can just copy this. And also regarding the scale, I have picked the Minor Pentatonic Scale, partly because it's very easy for this tutorial, just remembering the black keys. You don't even have to remember them in a way because you're using this plugin. The other reason is that it was a very popular scale among artists who released on Warp Records, where the Aphex Twin played around with this particular scale. I do not know, but I encourage you to just try different scales, find ones that you enjoy. I think the Phrygian scale sounds quite nice too. But let's stick to this one now. Another thing that helps make melodies interesting is to think about, so this one is now, how long is this one? The bass line is 4 bars long, so maybe we want to have a melody that is 2 bars, maybe? To start with, maybe we make it 8 bars, because you're going to get a less repetitive thing if you have the different parts of the melodic section to have slightly different lengths. I don't know what I'm talking about. Okay, so obviously the bass sat quite far down, so this one needs to be further up. So let's say, do we want to have the strongest note, remember, being the first one there, but maybe we want to have it offbeat instead. I already see that we probably want this to be 8 bars. And as the bass is quite intense, you can make the melody less intense, or you can do the other way around if you want to. You can do some chords in there. It's nice to have occasionally also these fast succession of notes every now and then, and just also think about that they are not necessarily always on the strong beat or on the quarter notes, that you just spread them out a bit more. You can do some notes longer just to create a little bit of variation in there, make it feel a bit more dynamic. Maybe we want to have a slightly more repetition so we can get some more recognizability, even though it's not exactly the same. So we can repeat some of the things happening here, maybe. It's too much offbeat stuff happening here, I think. Too many weak notes, so we have to push them a little bit more onto the grid. Something needs to happen here at the end. We can maybe have a little bit of jump of notes. Let's make some of these a little bit longer again. Bit of reverb on that maybe. We're also going to need some chords. Let's keep going with the operator. Need to make a chord sound. That will do for now. Oh no, what am I doing? I just wanted to create and this one probably need to be about 8 bars as well, at least. So let's just draw out some chords. We're also going to maybe limit the number of notes that it can play at the same time, because there's going to be a lot of overlap here. I'm just chancing this now. Let's do, with that melody we did first, let's introduce the random thing here as well. Maybe. Okay, this melody is quite fun, but it's not exactly catchy. It's not memorable. It's quite random, and obviously with this randomness introduced into it makes it even more so. And what I wasn't thinking about here, we can actually play a little bit with velocity range here. Create a little bit more of a... Can maybe do the time thing again. Wash that out in a bit more reverb. But we need a melody that's going to stand out more, that's going to be that thing that when you hear the track next time that you remember. And by doing that, we can maybe follow this principle a bit more like we did with the bass line, where we we have a dominant note for each bar that plays off the bass line. So let's just keep the bass line for now, and we can introduce the other ones again. And then we need another operator for this main melody. What should we do about this one? I love FM synthesis. We only used 2 operators so far, so should we introduce a third one? So how do we write a memorable melody? Maybe we certainly need that to be 4 bars. Let's just focus on this one for a bit. So we can do again. So there we split the third bar in two, and we do the D sharp here, and then we move up to an F sharp, sort of. Then we can have some very plinky things at the end. Let's make that mono. Maybe 2 notes. Maybe it's too high up, so I'm hitting shift and down to pitch the melody. Maybe there are too many notes in here. I think so. Too many notes. Those ones at the end, they're too annoying. I'm going to remove most of them. Let's go in and just do a little bit of quick EQing here, because I bet you that all of these are massively busy around here, around 200 hertz. So let's go and make some room here. Oh, this one not so bad. This one, let's just cut out everything we don't need. Here we got a big culprit. And now we need some drums, and something that I feel I've changed a lot in Aphex Twin's music is that everything feels quite a lot more recognizable now. You can recognize synths and drum machines and sampled breaks and loops, which I think in a lot of older records, I wouldn't say it's exclusively this, but there was a lot more sounds where I just didn't know where they came from. Let's take the 5 of 5. He seems to like using some of those old crappy drum machines at the moment. So let's just make a... Where's the open hi-hat there? Maybe we do that 2 bars long. And there's no harm in adding a little bit of randomization. So we use the chance so that some kicks may not play every time. And that's going to make our I think that hi-hat is too loud. I'm going to change this to a sampler and then so if we just listen to the drums for a bit. Quite a stupid beat, and then we take the random and then we increase that a bit, so you're not necessarily always going to get the drum sound that you expected. You create a bit of variation, and then we can also go in and add the beat repeat. Maybe offset that so the repeat will happen on the first beat of the bar. So we turn down the chance and the gate, because we don't want the repeat to go on for too long. And then we also want the I can't remember what that stands for now, but it basically, like, when the beat repeat happens, rather than having a mixed channel, so you hear the original signal still plus the repeat, this just cuts out the original signal and just plays the repeat. And we need to beef this up a bit, so we're going to take a reverb. Let's do this all before the beat repeat. We have quite a low reverb. And immediately after, we're going to take an OTT, which we those cowbell sounds drive me nuts. We can maybe have a clap or something occasionally. Let's be naughty and add stuff to the stereo mix as well. We add another OTT, but with quite a low amount. And before that, we set a reverb that's going to, and the drum bus. And we turn the drive down, but we turn the transients up. to make this a little bit more fun, let's do, this is a Maxwell I device that I've created. I've used it a lot in my videos before. It does a coin toss, so every time it receives a MIDI note, it will choose whether it will go on the left hand side or the right hand side, so you can set the likelihood of which side it's going to end up on, and then it rolls the dice again and create a value that you set here. So if we get on the left hand side, we get nothing. If it ends up on the right hand side, it's going to get a value between 50 and 100. So we set that to fire off the reverb return channel, and we move this to just be triggered by the kick. And we can do the same with a delay or an echo, and we're going to character and we turn repitch off. We have set this to time. And then we do another Max for Live device that I have. So random on off. And again, we set that to be triggered by the kick. No, let's do not that one. Random off version 2 is the one we want. And that sets a device on or off, but whenever it receives a MIDI note, it rolls the dice and sets how likely it is that it is going to either be on and off. It's set to 50% by default, so we set the echo. So now it's less likely to be on, but it is sometimes going to add that delay in, and we're going to add an expression control as well and set the random to control the time, which we don't quite want to be 0 all the time, but also we probably want it less than 50%. Can obviously add a beat repeat to the whole thing. Low chance, set it to be from maybe the second. To that limiter, it's first, that should be last. I think when we toss the coin, it's never going to be sending 100% to the reverb, because then it's just too much reverb. Feedback, very dangerous, too high. It's also fun. there you have it. I'm not going to call myself Aphex Twin. I know people will be complaining in the comments regardless, but I quite enjoyed this. Quite something melodic. I hope you learned something from it. If you support me on Patreon, you will be able to grab this project file and you will get my Max for Live devices and everything else. So thank you for watching and hope to see you again. Bye.